Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Preppy and the Stoner podcast. I am the Preppy.
And I am the Stoner.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Not much, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
I hate to admit this to all our unbelievably wonderful podcast listeners, but...
And there are so many.
We may have shot our wad in terms of...
We've been talking for 2.5 hours.
Nonstop about movies, and I got to tell you, I don't know, because obviously the show is just starting... we had some brilliant stuff off mic.
Yeah, we really did.
I think would have changed people's lives. So we'll try to recreate it without it being repetitive.
Of course. Ourselves. And please, dear listeners, stay with us. We are trying to figure out RSS feed stuff. We're trying to figure out how to get old podcasts up. So whatever you hear, we're pumping out so much content for you guys. And it's for you.
And it's for you. The bottom line is it's for you.
And again, it is opinion-based. You can agree with us, disagree with us. Hit us up on social media,
don't be a baby.
Don't be a baby about it. Don't be a baby. So today, what we were talking about for 2.5 hours, amongst many tangents, if you know the show,
I do.
I brought in the idea of the difference between your favorite movie and best movie, which sort of got us into maybe what would you constitute as the perfect movie.
I would say the criteria for the perfect movie is...
Yes.
And it goes into best
favorite, yeah.
The best movie,
yes.
I believe handles everything from the audio to the visual to the script to the direction to the acting.
So you're saying all of the Oscar categories are
I'm just saying the 5 tools. Like there's 200 people that
working
create
on
a
this
movie.
film, yeah.
200 to 400 special effects, maybe 6. It's a lot of people, is all I'm saying. And sometimes, like, good movies, favorite movies come together in spite of different factions of that movie that may not be getting along. The direction's great, but the script's kind of dumb, but you really
or the actors hate each other, or there's something going, like there's money is falling out, so we can't shoot this scene this way. There's I've heard some people, I can't remember the movie, but someone said this is one of the most brilliant shots in cinema, and they go, how did you come up with that? He goes, I had to put it there because if you went 2 inches to the left, you saw all the trailers, and if you went 3 inches to the right, all the horses and everything for the next setup were there, so I had to keep it in this narrow focus of right here. Oh, like it's not this brilliant art. But
it rarely is.
Right.
And like what I learned when I was in film school, and this is 318 years ago.
Right. Because you're Nosferatu, right?
At times.
Okay, good.
Not all the time.
Understandably.
It's, I got to get a manicure.
Understand.
And I got to get my teeth done.
Who doesn't?
But my production of Phantom of the Menace is going to be amazing.
Cannot wait.
So what I believe where was I?
I apologize.
Stoner mentality.
You said when you were in film school.
When I was in film school, what I realized is like that I had a professor and he was a really good dude, but like obviously wasn't a film genius. And everything he said,
name him on this.
I would rather not because he unfortunately passed away, so it makes you like remember him even better than it was. But he was kind of and this goes back to one of the things we were talking about earlier. Is it's the academic look at film,
right?
And then the personal way you enjoy film.
Because I was saying that,
real quick before I forget, it just ends up being subjective.
Very much
that people look at this shot and are like, this is the most brilliant shot in the history of the world.
And it has meaning.
Right. And they add all this meaning and all this...
And maybe it doesn't.
At all. It was just a dude trying to get a shot in before the sun went down.
Right.
In some cases. In some cases, it's absolutely meant that way.
Right.
But... to me, the truth of the matter is it's really all your subjective opinion and what you're bringing to the movie to begin with.
And look, obviously this entire conversation is subjective to whoever's looking at it. We can get into different genre, different types of movies. Like, look, I personally don't like horror movies. I can't sit through them. I get scared, that sort of thing. So I would never say that a horror movie is the greatest movie of all time. But someone else might go, you know what? The Exorcist is the greatest movie of all time, beat for beat for beat. And I've never seen it.
But wouldn't it be then that... not this horror movie, but a horror movie is the greatest movie of all time, or a drama, not
could be
the drama or this drama.
Well, because like we were saying, I mean, also depending on your experience of going to that movie, what it was like for you. You know, we off mic, unfortunately, we were talking a lot about who showed you a certain movie. If it's an older movie, like I have very distinctive, memories of sitting with my dad early on a Sunday morning and him showing me Singing in the Rain, going, look at this guy, look at Donald O'Connor, he's one of the best dancers ever, run up a wall and do a backflip. It's still one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
I think it's the greatest movie musical of all time. But you could argue that Wizard of Oz functionally, or
The Blues Brothers
is a great musical that you don't consider a musical.
And same thing, like I throw Moulin Rouge in that, completely in that list, because again, from the pre-production to the last edit, it's perfection. It's exactly what was meant to be.
Right.
And even if it wasn't intended that way when it started,
what it became.
The final product is a perfect. It's a perfect example of what the writer was trying to do, what the director was able to accomplish, and what the actors were able to present.
Which I always find interesting. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't think about it often, but it does make me wonder. Like I just saw Baby Driver recently, which was a movie directed and written by Edgar Wright. And it was an Edgar Wright movie from the minute it opened to the minute it closed, and stylized in his way. And I always find it interesting when you have a director who is also the writer go, because I'm assuming on the set he can go, you know what, forget that scene, let's rewrite it, let's do it this way, this and that. I'm not precious to it in this way. Or if you're someone like Aaron Sorkin and maybe they're directing an episode of their thing, they're going, I am precious to the word. We have to do it word perfect.
Tarantino, I believe, is very Tarantorial about his dialogue, which I get, because it's also him understanding his own rhythm. And I think when they're that associated with their own work, how much easier it is to understand everything that happens during the day of filming and then editing and even the pre-production is because I think they're also writing what they know how it looks in their head.
Right. Where if you have a director who takes another writer or a different writer's material and goes, okay, now I have to make this movie, both or one are going to have to give up control at some point. You know, we just saw it in the whole Han Solo fiasco that just happened with Lord and Miller and Lucasfilm.
And with Edgar Wright and Ant-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but here's the thing. With Edgar Wright and Ant-Man, that happens all the time where, hey, look, you've been developing something for a year, nothing has been shot yet.
But that's because Marvel and I guess Disney as well doesn't want directors making movies, but like sort of they don't want a take, you know what I mean, or a different take. They don't want an Edgar Wright movie, right? They want an Ant-Man movie directed by Edgar Wright.
And look, you have to give it to them, because if you look at it at any other product, Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola. You don't want someone coming in going, I have this idea for maybe a green tea kind of Coca-Cola, and I do it this way, and instead of the red bottle, why don't we do it kind of blue with some... That's not on brand for us.
But that's Coca-Cola's fault for bringing in somebody that's like, yo, I'm the green tea maven.
That's fair.
I make great green tea. And combined with your product, I can make incredible green tea. And Coke being like, well, that's not how we do it. And green tea being like, well, screw off. That's how I do it.
Right. Look, and that's where, and I didn't know we'd get into the Han Solo thing, but I found it incredibly interesting because they're so well into the shooting of that. Like,
they're shooting it.
Well, but like they took a hiatus from it, but
they were shooting. They were getting dailies.
Yeah.
It wasn't. They weren't in pre-production. They were in production.
That's what I mean. Where it's I think that's unprecedented. Where
I believe Casablanca.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which we were talking about. Did that happen? Where
what's it called? American History X.
Fired on the film?
That means I'm right.
Oh,
whenever
okay.
the car horn.
Every time a horn rings, Bobby gets his wings.
Oh, I should close that window. And I will in a second.
Nah.
But there's plenty of cases where
directors have been fired during the filming or close to finish, because they were close to finish of principal photography.
we are really onto something right now.
Oh my gosh. But they have like 5 weeks of reshoots set up.
Right.
But here's what I had heard. Well, first of all, so you have Kathleen Kennedy, who may be the greatest producer in the history of film.
Yeah.
Starting with, like, she was Spielberg's assistant. Oh, and take two. Let's do that again. She was Spielberg's assistant.
That's the actual way you're supposed to pronounce it.
Steven Spielberg's assistant.
Spielberg.
So she was Spielberg's assistant, and then I think her first producing credit was on E.T., little known film called E.T. And then from that,
I think it's pronounced Et.
You're right, just like that.
It's a French. He's from France.
It's funny. It's like that hospital show.
If they just flew him back to France.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like that hospital show.
Right.
You know what I mean? So and Et.
Yeah, I kept waiting to hear what that show had to say, and it just went on forever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We digress. But like Kathleen Kennedy, no schlub when it comes to making a blockbuster film. And then obviously she's had success in the last Star Wars film that we just saw, and then Rogue One.
Isn't she also a huge part of Lucas? She is
Lucasfilm,
right?
She's in charge of it. Did you say that,
or did I miss that?
I just said she's one of the top producers of all time, and she's married to another top producer, Frank Marshall.
Right,
is another unbelievable producer. So
Hall of Fame.
They both are Hall of Fame producers who know what they're doing and know how.
I'll also say Shuler Donner.
Yes,
she is another just amazing producer of work.
Did I tell you this story where she's Richard Donner's wife, right?
Yes.
Yes. So Richard Donner was getting some Lifetime Achievement Award or whatever, and Jeff Johns, who's the head of DC Comics and also works on all the shows and the movies, and with Kevin Feige, who's the head of Marvel, both had worked for Richard Donner when they first started. Fresh out of school, they both worked for Richard Donner. So the two heads of the two biggest comic book rivals in movies and comics today came together and spoke together to talk about Richard Donner and his wife and how wonderful they were. Well, Jeff Johns tells a story about how Richard Donner had a office on the Warner Brothers lot, and obviously he had made Superman. And he had a bathroom in his office, but he treated it like a closet. So there's all this crap in there, and Jeff Johns is going through it, and he finds, it says, Superman the movie, first draft of the script. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, oh yeah, it's the first draft of Superman the movie before we changed it. I gotta read this. So here's this young nerd who is, eventually going to become the head of all DC Comics. He's reading it, and there's a part where Superman is flying around, and he looks down, and he sees Lex Luthor, and he flies down, he flips him around, and it's the actor who played Kojak, and he just goes, "Who loves you, baby?" and they're like, "Oof, oof." What's that guy's name? I forget.
Telly Savalas.
Telly Savalas. So Telly Savalas gets flipped around and goes, "Who loves you, baby?"
He's got the lollipop.
Yeah, he got the lollipop, the whole thing.
That's
so
great.
Superman mistaken.
Richard Donner was replaced during Superman 2.
That's right.
So yeah,
crazy.
And how incredibly successful that movie turned out.
Well, I think actually you're right. Wizard of Oz, I think, had like 3 or 4 directors on it, or no, something.
Casablanca was, I think they had 2 or 3.
There's something with the Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, where Gone with the Wind went through, I think, a few directors as well.
Right, I'd have to review.
And have you ever seen Gone with the Wind?
No.
I didn't see it until probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I know people who would claim that's the greatest epic film of all time. I could not stand it. The only thing I liked about it was Clark Gable as Rhett Butler, maybe one of the most iconic, greatest characters in the world I've ever seen. The rest of it, I was like, this is boring. Right. I don't care. I don't know why we care about these people, but
but I guess too, how embarrassed are you going to be in the next 30 years when you look back and you're like, they look at all the movies that have either won Oscars that kind of shouldn't, guys who have won Oscars that shouldn't,
right?
And the top grossing movies of all time. I mean, that list will keep changing because the price of movies keeps going up.
Yeah, it's funny.
Imagine trying to explain to somebody the brilliance of Fast and the Furious 5.
Which is maybe the better ones of that franchise.
That's what everybody says. Start with 5.
Yeah.
Or watch 1 and then 5.
Yeah.
And then go with 5.
And then it gets better from there. Right. Yeah, it goes up from there.
And,
Well, I think it was. I think it was that idea. I think they really talked about it the year that Avatar came out, because obviously Avatar blew everything out of the water. It's still the highest-grossing film of all time.
10 weeks in a row, number one, or something like that.
But when it came time for Oscars, it didn't win any of the acting, any of the cinematography. Or as far as I know, I can't remember. But I think it was.
Do you think that has to do with the fact that the last time they gave the guy an Oscar, he said, "I'm king of the world"?
Maybe. But no.
And then went out and made a movie that made $100 billion and actually kind of became the king of the world.
Well, he was the king of the world before that, because that movie before that he did was the highest grossing movie of all time. He beat his own record. But I think, wasn't it?
That's amazing.
Wasn't it Hurt Locker that won that year? Wasn't it that?
Yeah, his ex-wife.
So his ex-wife, Catherine Bigelow.
That's because the studio hates you.
Right. So
not the studio. I'm sorry, the Academy.
Right. So I'm going. And I've actually never seen Hurt Locker, but by all accounts,
man, that's one of the most suspenseful movies. Yeah. It's opening a soda can in that movie is terrifying.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was the thing of like, okay, here's it sort of goes back to the difference between everybody has seen this movie over here, Avatar, compared to this is the critical darling. What's a better movie? Because again, I don't know how many times I've revisited Avatar. And look, I know they're supposed to come out with like 6 or 7 sequels. They got Avatar Land and in Disney World, and it's all this. Do I want that? Do I need that? Like, I'm almost not sure why Avatar did so well when it did, especially with all of these super hero movies that have come out.
Because you could dub 90% of the movie.
But couldn't you do that with any movie?
No, you can't do it with characters that are animated.
Yeah.
That are that epic, in that epic of a story. They're all blue. They're all animated. So
what about
you can translate that into every
that
language. Iron Man's the only one. You still see Captain America's mouth move.
So you're going, okay, because you can actually see the actors, that changes it? All right. Well, and so, sorry, I know we got on a huge tangent, but going back to the Han Solo thing, that sort of played into what I was talking about when it came to directors and the writers, because I think what really happened, from what I hear and by reading and all accounts, is Lord and Miller, who, by all accounts, are great directors and have had nothing but hits with the Lego Movie, with the 21 and 22 Jump Street
immature movies. With immature movies.
Right.
And Han Solo, even if he's a rascal youth, is not immature. And I think what they ended up getting was guys who are unbelievably funny.
Right.
And have a knack, not a knack. The guys are really good filmmakers.
Yes. By all accounts, it looks great.
You're putting in 21 Jump Street and that kind of comedy into a Han Solo's got depth.
Right. Well, here's the other thing. Lawrence Kasdan, who
is basically the grandfather of the franchise, or the granduncle,
of the franchise, and his son have written this script, and by all accounts, it's an amazing script. So you've got two guys who happy to do the script, I guess, maybe in 1 or 2 takes, and then do an hour of fun runs, as I like to call them, where they go, let's just improvise and see where this goes. Plus, you've hired Donald Glover, who is a great improviser, as Lando Calrissian. I'm sure he's come up with a lot of stuff, and I think there was just a huge disconnect there. So I find it very interesting. I'd love to know. And look, Ron Howard, who's obviously nobody for making a decent movie or a blockbuster, and has
worked with
George Lucas, Lucasfilm. Like, geez, his first movie was American Graffiti.
Right, and the first movie he directed was
Willow.
Yeah,
he did Willow for Lucas.
Right.
So he obviously knows structure and this and that. And I mean, ultimately, maybe if he had been the choice originally, probably fits more into their wheelhouse of directors. But
it's also a big part of that to me is with Ron Howard, you went from having a really funny movie and like probably a very loose set to
tightened up
and professional, extremely professional, but a guy who knows how to tug the heartstrings and understands action, but probably has a more sympathetic take on the emotions of the quote-unquote emotions of the character, but having a better understanding of the emotional structure of the characters, as well as just sort of putting together the funniest stuff you can.
Although, and like people are not happy that Ron Howard's taken over because he hasn't had a hit in a while. What's the last Ron Howard movie you've seen? Because the last one I saw, I think in theaters, which it didn't do well, but I really liked, was Rush.
I saw it on Netflix, but I loved it.
It was great.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
I didn't see In the Heart of the Sea, which was the whale movie.
Could care less.
And I like the Robert Langdon series with the Da Vinci Code stuff, but I still didn't see Inferno, and it didn't do well. Which, again, is sort of a weird thing because you've got Ron Howard, who is a top 10 director, and you've got Tom Hanks, who is still, by all accounts, a huge draw. And it just didn't, maybe people were just sick of it.
But it's also, 11 years after the last one?
I don't know if it's 11, but it's a long time.
Right.
Yeah,
there's no reigning interest. If you
yeah.
put out a different Harry Potter movie every 2 years and you have 7 books,
right?
That's over the course of 14 years.
Yeah, and then a Fantastic Beast and Where to Find Them and all that sort of stuff.
And you can always catch up with it, and it's hard to do that with adult fiction.
It's just interesting, the idea between the disconnect between, and also who has the more power on a set compared to the writer and the director. Because I guarantee if you had someone, I know I always bring up Spielberg, but
the producer, I think ultimately it's the producer.
Well, and obviously Kathleen Kennedy,
but she'll determine who has more importance.
Right. Well, she showed that.
Real quick,
that's all right. Well, she showed that in that she's going to back Larry Kasdan over these two directors. You know what I mean? But then you have someone like Spielberg who knows Larry Kasdan, Lawrence Kasdan. I call him Larry.
Big Larry.
Big Larry. Where I'm sure if there was a disconnect, there would have been a sit-down conversation and they would have figured it out because they have worked together, they have respect for each other, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they have a relationship.
Right.
Oh, man, wait, I think I was hitting the whole time. Sorry about that.
That was him, that's not me this time. So, all right, so back to our original thought process.
And real quick, also, I really like Alden Ehrenreich. Yeah.
Alden Ehrenreich?
What's it called? Like
the only performance I saw him in was in that Coen Brothers movie, and I thought he was the best part of that movie.
Man, and I'll tell you, I've watched that movie 2 or 3 times now, and it gets better every single time.
Because I didn't love the movie, but I thought
Hail Caesar. We're talking about
Hail Caesar, and I went, who is this kid, and where did he come from?
And oh wow, man!
But that character watching that movie does not make me go, geez, that's Han Solo.
Not at all.
No.
But it also doesn't make you go, that's not Han Solo.
I guess. Well, here's the other thing. From what I heard, some people are saying that the whistleblower on the whole thing was Alden Ehrenreich calling up
I can't work like
Lucasfilm and saying, this is not the movie I signed up for, and I don't like all this improv stuff. Like he's probably not an improviser.
Right.
Where Donald Glover was probably told, do what you got to do, and he probably throws in some real good stuff and gets real sort of, Colt 45, like who knows. But but I'm sure this Alden Ehrenreich guy goes, hey, man,
what are we doing here?
I was given a script. I'm trying to do my best Harrison Ford.
It's all speculation, Dave.
It is all speculation. No one really knows, but...
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is they didn't like what they were seeing. And they knew they all have enough experience to go... one of my favorite movies... ever, which surprised me that it was one of my favorite movies ever, is Master and Commander.
Really? And I've never seen it.
Oh, man.
Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Directed by Wolfgang Peter, or was it Peterman? I don't know.
Peterson?
Yeah, I think it was Wolfgang. Like, brilliant director.
Wolfgang Puck just directed the hell out of it.
It was delicious. This movie was delicious.
Unbelievable.
It was
Did you know,
different ingredients.
I know one little thing about that movie is that Russell Crowe learned to play the violin for one scene in that movie. I don't know if they dubbed over it or who knows if it's actually good.
No, it's great. It becomes a great scene.
Does it? I don't know the scene at all, but I do know.
But he was just awesome in it. There's a scene where, like, the way I saw it, and I had been working at Fox for a while at that time, and it was a Fox movie. It was actually sort of a metaphor for Rupert Murdoch. And how Rupert Murdoch went against the other pirates in the sea for control of the airwaves and like
won.
And was the master and commander. And there's a scene where one of the crew members gets caught on a rope and he's trailing behind, and if they don't pull him up in time, the whole ship goes.
Right.
And I know it's been done before, but the way Russell Crowe has to make the decision to cut him loose or keep trying to pull him in during the storm is like the best metaphor for filmmaking to me and for success is you know what,
sometimes you have to make hard decisions
and you got to cut the rope.
Right.
You got to cut the rope, and you got to cut the rope quick so we can get back on track and get back into what we're doing.
Because sometimes the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
And somebody's got to. I'm sorry you had to suffer, and it was unfortunate. It was
and that's not what I wanted,
and it wasn't your fault.
Right.
It also wasn't your fault. It's just the way of.
I know
this is best for us, not for you.
I know it wasn't my fault.
Good luck with wherever you land.
Not you too, man. Hey, Will, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, Will. Not you too, man. Why's it got to be so hard? Good Will Hunting. Go rent it, people. It's pretty good.
People, I've heard many arguments about that Kevin Smith actually wrote that script.
Really?
Yeah. Or had not the entire script.
I'm sure he
like,
helped.
But I mean like big time.
Really?
Yeah. Big time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because he never claims it.
Right.
Huh.
That was the hot rumor. I remember around Los Angeles around the time that movie came.
Interesting. Because I like Kevin Smith. I like all his stuff. I mean,
all his stuff?
I haven't seen the Walrus movie or the last one, but...
I stopped after Jay and Silent Bob,
yeah,
which is probably my favorite comedy of all time.
That's your favorite comedy of all time? It's a good movie.
Dude, the fact that Jay holds that movie and
apparently was high as a kite on it.
Kills it.
Yeah.
Kills it.
You know, he's written another script called Jay and Silent Bob
Rebooted
or something, and it's basically the same movie, and they're gonna make another Jay and Silent or a Blunt and Chronic movie, and they're gonna reboot it, so they have to go back to Hollywood and stop it again, sort of thing.
Well, it's tough now because Jay sounds so different.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
so does Bob. Like he just never shuts up.
Yeah, I can't. I that's why I can't hear Jay anymore.
Yeah, because
it's everything a good zany comedy should be.
Yeah. Will Ferrell, we were talking about him earlier.
Unbelievable.
Great in that movie.
Yeah. Destroys it. And Judd Nelson destroys it.
And you have Luke and Leia back on screen after years.
Right.
Which is kind of cool. That they didn't have a scene together.
George Carlin.
George Carlin's in it, that's right. Wait, is George Carlin in that one?
Yeah. He's a hitchhiker.
Oh, that's right. But he's great in...
the rules of the road.
He's great in Dogma as the priest.
Great.
Yeah.
And like...
Buddy Christ.
But Jay and Silent Bob's amazing. Tracy Morgan absolutely destroys me in that movie.
That's right. You forget how many like great sort of...
little cameos.
Yeah, little cameos and SNL people and people starting out.
Sorry, drinking. Jon Stewart.
That's right, Jon Stewart's in it. Jeez, so many people in this movie.
And then the Eliza Dushku...
all the killer girls, yeah.
Brilliant.
Elizabeth,
like we're able to weave a really silly storyline and make it work
and likable and all that.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith's wife is one of them. Yeah, all that.
And this, you know what, this really goes back to a conversation we had off mic, which was about if you were to take The Dark Knight and show it,
right?
Is it because you think it's a great movie?
Right. So, okay. So let's set up the premise a little bit more. Was that we were talking best movies or great, maybe the greatest movie. I remember seeing The Dark Knight and going, this is a film. This is a brilliant film. But I'm wondering, do you need Batman Begins to understand The Dark Knight? If you you and I know 75 years worth of history of Batman, just from comics, TV shows, movies, everything. But the Burton-verse, the Schumacher-verse, and again, Batman Begins.
And even going into a toy store.
I
mean, it's even if you haven't seen the movies or know the history,
you know what a Batman
you're familiar with Batman.
So if you just showed somebody there are no other properties, it's just The Dark Knight. Does it make sense and does it still hold up and is as good? And you were saying,
I say absolutely.
Right.
You don't need, and this goes back to my point with Jay and Silent Bob, and why Dark Knight is such a great film.
Mm-hmm. Which we have both said changed the superhero genre forever, based mostly on, I guess we were talking off mic, Heath Ledger's performance.
I say completely based on Heath Ledger's performance.
You don't think that the filmmaking also was stepped up comparatively from just even Batman Begins?
I dare you to watch Dark Knight
without all the Joker scenes.
Yeah, 100%, and Dark Knight Rises without all the Bane scenes.
Right. But couldn't you also argue that all the Harvey Dent stuff is also really, really good?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's your other villain in it, essentially, or the fall of a hero into another villain. So, I mean, in all honesty, if it's just a Harvey Dent a Harvey Dent fall story, it's still a good movie. It's not the movie it was.
I'm saying you'd be surprised
really
at how
ridiculous it is,
cheesy the lines sound, and how sort of off the acting is.
Do you have an example? Like of a scene or something? Like
the Maggie Gyllenhaal with like the Rico act.
But don't you think...
Awful.
But don't you think...
There's a lot of stuff like that peppered throughout.
But don't you think the character of Rachel Dawes in both Batman Begins and in The Dark Knight is not a well-written character?
I really like Katie Holmes.
You like Katie Holmes better?
I thought like the stuff she had to do was a little silly.
See, I liked Gyllenhaal better.
I can't understand it for the life of me.
I thought she was better in it. I thought less... Well, Katie Holmes I think is very Katie Holmesy.
Yeah, well, it's still like that Dawson Creek-y...
Yeah, where I think Maggie Gyllenhaal...
A walk-in, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought Maggie Gyllenhaal was like... You weren't going, geez, that's Maggie Gyllenhaal. You're going, okay, that's Rachel Dawes.
Oh, see,
you felt the other way?
Yeah, completely.
Interesting.
The whole time I was just like, ugh, that's a chick from Secretary.
There's that...
that movie was boring.
There's that great Family Guy joke.
That's the best ever.
Where they cut to Jake Gyllenhaal and Maggie Gyllenhaal. No, I'm more off-putting. No, I'm more off-putting.
Yeah, but I'm bigger box office drag.
No.
Kids.
You're both terrible.
Just awful.
If Maggie and Jake are listening, we both love you. It's
Jake,
fine.
I think, is... Zodiac is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Donnie Darko's phenomenal. Zodiac, he's incredible in Zodiac.
He does some brilliant stuff in Prisoners. Have you seen that movie
with
Hugh Jackman?
Yeah.
He's doing some interesting stuff.
Yeah, Jackman, I think, was the problem in that movie.
Did you think he was? Why?
Because it's like Wolverine, man.
Yeah. Apparently, he's got a movie coming out. He just signed up. I'm forgetting the director now. It's a good director, and it's like a political thriller where he is like a politician who's got a lot of skeletons in his guy.
Gyllenhaal or
Jackman? Sorry,
Jackman.
And it looks good. Like he's starting to do some non-hero-y stuff. I think he's good.
Not interested.
I think he's great in anything.
And I thought he was great in Pan.
I didn't see Pan.
Oof,
huh?
Oof.
It looked oof. Hey, you know what I was saying to somebody recently? I was talking about The Prestige.
I think with me.
Was it with you?
Because I had seen it. I rewatched it last week.
Then we haven't talked about this.
Ago.
But I was saying, as good as Christian Bale is, Hugh Jackman does a great job in The Prestige.
And he's playing the two characters.
Everybody's playing two characters pretty much. But I thought Jackman does almost an understated sort of performance until sort of the end. But it was like, he's doing some really good stuff in that movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, Nolan is just a beast.
He really is. Although, like, Dunkirk is coming out. And
oh, my goodness, does that look amazing.
See, I don't have any... Like, from everything I'm seeing, I'm going, I don't really want to see this. But because of who it is and Tom Hardy and him, like, all that, I'm like, I'm going to see it. It's going to be great.
I have a buddy who works in the quote-unquote aerial field of filmmaking.
Camera shooting,
and he was telling me about it like a year or so ago about like how they were designing the planes to capture the footage and how like they rented every available plane
that
in the world.
Jeez.
Like private collections from people and
just
it becomes the Aviator at a certain point. But the dedication
or Hell's Angels. Yeah.
But the Aviator of the craziness of trying to get all this together.
Right. Well, like remember in The Aviator, Hell's Angels, and he's renting all the planes and all that. Yeah. Like it's like
we
got to wait for clouds because clouds show us perspective, like all that sort of stuff. It's
the stories of Dunkirk must be just as amazing as Dunkirk.
Right. Exactly. Which is so back to our original thing of favorite versus best. My buddy Zach we were talking about this yesterday, and that's how I sort of came up with this theme for us. Was he said he could argue that the best film ever is Apocalypse Now. And his reasoning is structure-wise, story-wise, how long it took. The story of making Apocalypse Now is essentially, like you said, is his own thing compared to the movie that it is. Plus, you have so many powerhouse actors in it. Cinematography, obviously Francis Ford Coppola.
Did you know of the problems of Apocalypse Now before you saw Apocalypse Now?
No.
Okay.
And I saw Apocalypse Now a long time ago.
Gotcha.
Like it's been removed from me. And that's the other thing where I'm going, okay, obviously probably one of the greatest movies of all time. For me, I don't know if it is. Like, again, Jaws is one of those movies that no matter when it's on, or if it's starting, if it's halfway through, if it's right at the end, I will always watch it. And again, like you said, another movie riddled with problems, which made the movie better. The shark, according to Steven Spielberg, was going to be, you're going to see the fin in the first shot, you're going to see a bit of the snout, the mouth, the tail, and it's not as scary. But because the shark didn't work and sank on the first day, we have to do everything with camera tricks. It made it one of the most successful films of all time.
They had to use their creativity.
Right.
And when you put that creative of a mind to work,
here's what you get. Yeah. And all the stuff without the shark, all the human elements, like one of the greatest scenes, I think, in cinematic history is Chief Brody realizing that his son is doing the hand movements with him and is just following along like that. It's a brilliant father-son scene.
And the scene with Dreyfuss, Scheider, and Robert Shaw on the boat. I mean, like that.
Talking about the Indianapolis. Yeah.
That's and this
and doing the scars and all that. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Phenomenal. But
so is Jaws the greatest movie of all time?
I don't think so.
No.
Jaws is a great flick.
And I could argue. So here's my argument. Like again, I think I've said it. I think on our
but
first
are you
podcast.
claiming Jaws is the best movie of all time, or your favorite movie of all time?
Well, I think my favorite movie of all time is again a comedy, which is called "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World." Is the greatest movie of all time? I could argue it just because it's got every great comedian from the 1930s. Like,
but cinematically, I mean, like it's.
Well, and it's Stanley Kramer, who's a brilliant director as well. They are doing some cinematic things that you've never seen before, and scale and car crashes and like all kinds of stunts that you're like, oh my gosh. But movie-wise, like I've thought about it and I'm going, okay, Star Wars A New Hope may be the greatest movie of all time, or I've also said Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Raiders of the Lost Ark is also, Spielberg has said, the only one of his movies where he can watch it completely like he didn't make it. Front to back, like he didn't make it, going, this is a good movie.
Right.
And he's made 2 or 3 other Indiana Jones films, and he's made other things that I think have been more successful, and obviously Schindler's List and E.T. and all these other things. But structurally, from start to finish, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark might be a perfect movie.
Not a wasted second.
No. Not a wasted character, not a wasted second. I don't know. And again, I'm sorry, I know I'm just talking a bunch. I know people in the Star Wars universe will say that Empire Strikes Back is considered a better movie than Star Wars A New Hope. And it goes back to my Dark Knight thing. Can you watch Empire Strikes Back without having watched Star Wars A New Hope?
Absolutely.
How so?
Okay, this is a very... going back to Jay and Silent Bob.
Okay.
The underestimation of the intelligence of the audience.
Which I always do. I always assume we're as smart as the dumbest person.
But you also do the most and best research of anybody I've ever met when it comes to going to see a movie.
Right, but I didn't when I first saw Star Wars or Raiders. Like, these are just movies that, again,
How did you hear about Star Wars? Your dad was like, so you had somebody who ushered you in.
Right.
And with care.
Of course.
And presented these movies to you as this is really great stuff.
Right. So, like, I think I got the experience, I'm assuming, I can't fully remember, that when I saw Empire Strikes Back, and spoiler alert for, a movie that's 40 years old, that I didn't know that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. But in the first one, New Hope, from start to finish, if they never made another movie, that's a great movie that bookends, that finishes, the good guys win. Darth Vader doesn't even die. You don't know that he's Luke's father. You have no inkling that he's Luke's father. You just know that he's this big, bad black man.
Jeez-o.
Sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
Even in the space universe a long, long time ago, they were hated.
Yeah, they hate the black guy.
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Ugh, sorry.
Anyway, no.
We'll cut that out. I didn't mean it to sound as
No, I
racist
don't
as
think
it
it came
came
out that way. It just
Oh,
interestingly.
here come
wound
the
up that way.
letters. But I'm just saying,
We'll
like,
take
you
it.
had no idea that all this other stuff that you're gonna know as.
Like here, well, I think the bigger question is: do you need to watch Empire to get Jedi?
I mean, technically, yes.
Not so much in Empire. In Empire, you don't at all.
Well,
you can pick up.
I mean, you can pick up for
There's
sure.
this guy training with this weird creature.
Well,
He's got these
we
buddies
open
here.
we open on Hoth,
Right.
so you have a
They're
relationship,
saving him. Right.
Right.
But the what I'm saying is those scenes are all it's all built in. It's all built in with the writing.
I guess so, but do you get the whole princess thing? Like, there's history.
They
from
call
the
her
first,
princess.
I know, but I'm
you've got
just
to be
saying.
a moron not to be able to figure out that
I
she's
understand
a
that,
princess.
but I'm saying you have a whole movie of history of them going on this first adventure together. You know what I mean? And without that, you're starting the
But
action
you start
in the
off,
middle.
They're all in war together,
Right.
and one of them gets injured,
Right.
and they
And-
all
and
rally
it's-
around him, and then there's
and it's Han,
within
old
the
buddy.
first 20 minutes, you've
Yeah.
got the sexual tension between Han and Leia.
Right.
You've got the sexual tension between
Between
Luke and Leia.
yeah.
And Chewbacca's thrown in,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
all the you've got all the elements of how the story plays out.
It took a while, but I finally hit the
I
mic.
redeemed.
I finally hit the mic. All right.
That you have all the elements of what you need to know within the first 20 minutes.
So you're saying if right now we gathered every print copy of Star Wars: A New Hope, burnt it, never saw it, and everybody just could only see Empire, and from now on everybody goes, oh, Star Wars. It starts with Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Everyone's fine.
Yeah.
Do you think it's enriched though by having 4?
Oh, totally. Well,
Right.
4 is the information, but don't forget too.
But is it a better movie?
Five is. Oh yeah. Well, I think the difference is.
And again, I'm sorry. And
Star Wars revolutionized. Star Wars revolutionized filmmaking.
right,
It didn't intend to, but it did.
right.
Jaws revolutionized filmmaking. It didn't intend to, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about both movies spawn franchises,
Right.
and Star
I don't
Wars.
know if the Jaws franchise is as
well,
strong as the
it didn't follow under Steven Spielberg.
True.
It was just the property.
Right.
But I'm saying those were such strong movies that they had to make. The difference is Lucas stayed with his franchise.
True. Although, if you think about it, you're right. I mean, they revolutionized, or Jaws revolutionized the genre itself. We are still getting shark movies now. Like, we have that 43 meters down, and people
Right. And the
love
summer
it.
blockbuster.
That's for sure.
And then a year later was Lucas.
Right.
So what Lucas did was stay with the franchise, create the universe, even though he didn't write and direct the movies. He oversaw everything.
Right.
And they were following instructions through what he wanted. And he created this whole amazing universe.
Right. He's the Godfather.
And maybe the reason Empire is better is because he oversaw and didn't write and didn't direct.
Well, and I think
But the difference was,
do we only have that
the
hindsight
it's
now?
the dad element and it's the love element. You've got the love. You finally have Han and
Leia fall in love.
and admit it to each other.
Well, he knows, but he
But
doesn't.
that means I love you too.
I
Like,
know.
it was brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what him understanding his character so much better than the writer and the director.
Right.
Again, that's everything coming together. But also, you have this entire storyline about the most evil man in the world is your father.
Right.
And I think the majority of kids who saw Star Wars really liked Han, but associated themselves more with Luke. It's sort of being
And
a
I think
Padawan.
I think you're supposed to.
Completely. Well, it really is about Luke.
Right. Well,
And
and as we said, and
Han is the Will Ferrell of the Star Wars universe.
obviously.
He just does
And that's
great
what-
in every scene he's got.
And that's what Phil Lord and Chris Miller knew. They go, this guy
Right.
is the Will Ferrell of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, he just does the most with what he's got.
Well, again, and not to get very Joseph Campbellian, but again, I've sort of told you about this hero's journey thing.
I knew about it too.
I
though.
know you knew about it, but I'm saying the idea of, especially the first Star Wars, follows the hero's journey almost beat by beat by beat by beat.
But that's also because he can't write dialogue, and he doesn't understand human emotions, and he doesn't understand characters.
But what I'm saying is Luke is the hero that we need to follow. That's why
Completely.
that's why we all identify him. The cool guy, which is Han Solo, is an ally. And although he wears the mask of the hero sometimes, he's not the hero. He's going to help our hero, and he's going to, and he might...
But he also has the least amount of responsibility on him.
Well, that's why. That's why he can fly in at the end, not shoot up the Death Star, but help out and go, send it
And
home,
he lost
kid.
his satellite dish. He lost his DirecTV.
It's the worst.
Flying out of there. I felt so bad for
That's
him.
why he's so angry. That's why he's so angry on Hoth. Not as
Right.
in cold. I don't have my TV.
Right. I can't watch Game of Thrones.
No.
Oh, man.
How is he getting Game of Thrones?
I just did it.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
It was a really good satellite dish.
It's a good satellite dish.
No, I think going back to the perfect movie,
Yeah.
what I think obviously I've got to be like a lame academic dude and just say Citizen Kane is
so boring.
Are you out of your mind?
You don't think it's boring?
Oh man, I think it's the
Family Guy ruined the ending for me because I never saw the ending.
wow,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And
see,
and I laughed so hard.
Yeah,
and I agreed with Peter on it. It's like, you know what? And spoiler alert for Citizen Kane, it's his sled, his childhood sled. I just saved you 2.5 boobless hours.
but like, if you didn't know that going in,
Which I didn't.
right?
I think I watched 3/4 of the movie. This is when you rented tapes, folks, and I had to give the tape back. I couldn't get through it. And then Family Guy came and spoiled
How
it.
old were you when you first saw it?
I had to be in my teens, maybe
Okay.
the 14 or 15.
To me, first of all,
I'd have to watch it now.
because
but-
I also think The Matrix is pretty much up there with the perfect movie.
and that follows the hero's journey.
And also follows what is Citizen Kane, what is Star Wars, what is Jaws, what is The Matrix. These are movies that, after you see them, changed filmmaking.
Well, we were talking also that Casablanca may be the greatest film of all time.
Yeah.
And there's one that doesn't really follow the hero's journey. It's a love story in wartime, and I don't know. There's something about that movie that is perfect. It's got music.
And think about it, too. Like, around that time, 39, you had Gone with the Wind.
Yep.
And then up to, I think, 41 when... Was it 41 when they released Casablanca?
I'm not 100% sure on it. I know we sort of talked about it. But
Around that time, like, look at the way those movies all end. Are usually extremely, almost exclusively dissatisfying endings.
you mean where the guy doesn't get the girl?
Yeah, and like one guy's like, screw you, and the other one's like, yeah, go with him. I don't care. Like, the worst example for love, but it's, I think also that they're not overly romanticized at the end, and that that there's an honesty more so in the 30s and 40s than we have today, where everything has to kind of end perfectly.
But then you have a movie like La La Land, which came out recently, and there again, it was satisfying that they didn't end up together.
I didn't see it.
Oh, really?
Did they end up together in Sarah Marshall?
No, they
Right.
don't. And that was the thing, like they go, like the whole movie.
But there's at the end, you're like, oh wait, are they back
they?
together?
Right. No, he ends up. Spoiler alert for Sarah Marshall. Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He ends up with Mila. Sort of ends up with Mila Kunis.
Oh, that's what I meant with Mila Kunis, not with.
Not with Sarah
Kristen
Marshall.
Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She comes and visits to see the show, and they're like, "All right, we'll go out to dinner," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he
It's
kind
sort of
does.
open ended, but it does
Or does
hint.
he-
It hints that they're getting back together.
Well, no, she walks. I think
She
she walks
visits
in on
his
him naked
vampire
again.
show.
Yeah, and she walks in on him naked, and then she just laughs and kisses him. Isn't that right? At the vampire show, like he's like, "Oh yeah, well let's go grab a drink or something." She changes and she's like, "Hey Peter, I just want," and he's naked again. That's
Gotcha.
the joke from the beginning of him.
Unfortunately, I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to see it. You'd love to see his penis.
I saw it, and I saw the shortcut though.
Ah.
I didn't see the director's cut.
Clap, 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 clap. So back to Casablanca. I mean, here's another thing. I don't know if you take this into account. At the time, it won the top 5 Oscars that year, which only I think 2 or 3 other films have done. So best actor, best actress, best director, best screenplay, best movie, I think. And do you know what the other ones are that have done it?
I believe it was Ernest Goes to Camp
Correct.
and Ernest Saves Christmas.
Both Ernest movies, I'll tell you that. I can't remember which ones.
Hey, Vern.
Hey, Vern. All right there, Vern.
What are the other movies?
So, did you ever see a movie called It Happened One Night with Claudette Colbert and
No.
Clark Gable?
No.
Great movie. basically, spoiled rich girl sort of runs away from her father. This guy picks her up and is being paid by the father to take care of her and bring her back home. He falls in love with her along the way, this sort of rapscallion that is Clark Gable. And then he goes, you know what, keep your money. I love your daughter, and I'd rather not have her and not have the money than this sort of thing. I can't remember. I think It's a Wonderful Life almost did it, but I don't think it did. And then I know for sure One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest won all of them, which is a great film as well.
Oh, man, it's amazing.
Know who produced that film and is not in it? Who is it?
It's going to be Michael Douglas.
Correct, Michael Douglas.
Do you know whose father was really pissed at him that he hired Jack Nicholson instead of him?
Kirk Douglas?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe it's Michael Douglas' father, Kirk Douglas. Do you know whose real name is Michael Douglas?
Yes, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Do you know who...
We're just saying trivia now. Forget the topic. Here's trivia.
But I like that we both know each other's questions.
Yes.
Do you know who's also in there that's awesome to see, that's hysterical, that you forget is in there?
Danny DeVito?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Do you know who was Michael Douglas' roommate in college?
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know who does a killer job in that movie? Is Jack Nicholson.
He does. Pretty crazy, like, because I saw that in a classroom.
Yeah.
At school, obviously, I didn't just like accidentally wander into a classroom.
Look, Bobby wanders from classroom to classroom, seeing if someone has wheeled in that old TV on the stand
in Southern California.
VHS.
Like, you guys watching El Norte?
Yeah, all right. I've seen El Norte. It's a rough movie. Spoiler alert: they chop the guy's head off at the end.
At first, they chop his tongue off.
Do they?
Oh yeah, it was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen.
They deport him, send him back to his it's not Is it Mexico?
Yeah.
So they send him back to Mexico, and the last scene in the movie is his head hanging from a tree. I remember going, "Why did we watch this movie?"
Right.
El Norte.
This is how rough it is. I'd like a report.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
I saw that in class, and I saw Apocalypse Now in class first, and then I'd seen it in other versions. So obviously, Apocalypse Now we watched over the course of like 3 days. So
I was going to say.
And that's like you got to remember that stuff like as you're watching, and not like, oh yeah, I'll just pick up when he's punching a mirror.
Right. I mean.
But yeah, that movie's incredible, but... What I truly believe, Citizen Kane, I think is
the best movie ever.
I think you can argue that Silence of the Lambs.
Okay. And again, I think we also, after you say this, we have to talk about the difference in genre.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
Because you could say Silence of the Lambs is one of the best thrillers ever made.
No, I think Silence of the Lambs is a perfect movie.
Well, because we were also talking about Hitchcock as a director, and we both love To Catch a Thief.
Yeah.
Rear Window. You like Vertigo. I don't love it as much. I hate The Birds. Have you ever seen The Birds?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's a bizarre... People love that movie, and it doesn't make sense to me. They never explain why the birds are doing this. Like, there's no explanation. It's just happening. And maybe I just have to get past that, but...
But I think, too, maybe in regards to the time it was made, like during the fear of the Cold War and the fear of the bomb, is that...
The unknown.
And disaster at any point in time. And you don't know where it's coming from or why it's coming from there. You just have to react.
We're talking Hitchcock. We didn't even say Psycho. Like, Psycho's
Psycho's a pretty perfect movie.
Perfect movie.
Yeah.
And suspenseful. And it still holds up. That's the other thing, especially with an older movie. Does it hold up?
Right.
Again, with Jaws. I know the shark is fake. I know it looks ridiculous. Still is scary. Still is suspenseful. Still works.
Completely. Oh, man. And that's better than... Same with Hurt Locker. Like, Hurt Locker, you could watch that movie at any year, and it is so gripping and so well done. But one of the other movies, I'll say Silence of the Lambs, I believe is a perfect movie. Raising Arizona is
you got Coen
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah,
is a perfect movie.
I mean, I like these movies. But again, how often do you revisit these movies?
All the time. Raising Arizona and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
All the time.
All the time.
This is a man who's watched Suicide Squad how many times?
6.
All right, then. Batman v Superman. The Dawn of Justice, sorry. Let me 11. Get the colon in there. Okay, 11 times?
Maybe more. And Man of Steel, about 11.
I've watched Jaws.
Watched Mad Max Fury Road again yesterday. That's
Excellent.
probably the 20th time.
Is that the best Mad Max movie?
Yeah, the other ones were just
I've seen bits and pieces of the first one. I like Thunderdome. Who?
Tina Turner.
Oh yeah, rocking the Thunderdome.
And Master Blaster is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. He's just a child. Oh,
excellent.
That was great.
But I think we were talking about it, and in case we don't get to put it up in the Wonder Woman episode, we were talking about that Mad Max Fury Road is really a Furiosa movie.
Completely.
And she's your heroine, and Mad Max is almost your.
He's the MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin Han Solo ally.
He's the MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's true.
It's even named after him.
Right. Well,
and it turns out
also it's sort of named after her too, Furiosa Road.
Yeah. You don't realize
you don't realize it till you're in it.
But like literally at the end of that, and this happened to me at Vanilla Sky. Mm-hmm. At the end of that movie,
which I've never seen,
as he's walking away and he looks up, I was like to myself, oh, it was about her the whole time.
The whole time.
Cool.
You were high?
Yeah.
Of course you were.
Fury Road it up.
Yeah.
And Vanilla Sky.
Yep.
The last frame of that movie, I understood it. The whole time I was confused.
I haven't seen it, so.
The last... I would have to watch it again to be able to be specific, but the last frame of the movie, like literally, like they just uncovered and explained everything to me. I was like, oh,
I see it now.
But I will say, maybe on record, the finest film ever made
is
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Ooh, it's a brilliant film.
Unbelievable.
And the acting, Gregory Peck at his best, yeah.
From the writing, from adapting it from that book to being able to create these characters and
and iconic. But here's the other thing: is that what makes a best movie? Because like again, there are so many iconic characters.
But I think like you have iconic. You can the word is I think has been overused to death.
Right, but like,
do you mean archetypes?
No, because look at my picks of like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars. You can, the brilliant thing about Raiders, you can do just the silhouette of Indiana Jones and you know who it is. In fact, they've used his
I think that's good
silhouette
for marketing and especially.
But he's an icon. Like he is in the lexicon forever.
Yeah, James Bond. In
James
the
Bond with the gun.
Hitchcock, but that's him as a director, not necessarily the movie. But I think.
But like I'm sure if I said, pick when you think of an image from To Kill a Mockingbird.
What's his name? Gregory Peck in the courtroom.
Right, exactly. That's the image you see, and that's an iconic image. When you say pick, okay, well maybe this is interesting. When I say pick one thing, when I say Star Wars, what pops into your mind?
Luke with Leia.
Really?
And New Hope about to swing over.
Oh, that's the... See, for me, it actually, and surprisingly, because it goes against my argument, might be him crossing lightsabers with Darth Vader. He's met, he's fighting his father.
Are you saying A New Hope, or are you just saying Star Wars in general?
In general.
Gotcha. Like what really comes to my mind is when he cut off his hand and he's screaming no.
Right. Like maybe that's the most iconic.
And then when he gives him the biggest beatdown of all time in
Jedi.
Oh my goodness, dude.
That's a guy who went, you know what? I'm sure there was choreography, but just keep swinging. I'm swinging for the fences. This is a home run on this one. I don't know. But then for Indiana Jones, I mean, it might be the part where he pops up right before the giant ball rolls, but also that first shot of the hat comes in silhouetted. And you're like, this is our hero. This is Indiana Jones. Because they do that so much. By the time you get to Last Crusade, they do it to you and make you go, oh, it's not him.
Have you heard the argument of the Han Solo being a huge part of Indiana Jones?
I've heard that the entirety of Indiana Jones is the carbonite fever dream of Han Solo when he's in the carbonite
Phenomenal.
freeze. Yeah.
Because he shoots in... the version we all saw.
Yeah.
He shoots Greedo first.
Right.
He shoots the guy in
Raiders.
Right. Similar fashion.
Right. Just cold-blooded.
So is it that we have so much love for Han Solo that we've put that love onto Indiana Jones?
Look, I think people have done a lot of like internet movie fights of who's a better character, who would win in a fight, Han Solo, Indiana Jones. Yeah, who do you like better? I don't know.
The dude's got a blaster, bro.
Right.
And his dog walks around with him. You know, like he's gonna be okay. Was Short Round gonna?
I love Short Round.
I love Short Round.
Short Round saved the day. He's the real hero.
He just burned him.
Yeah, just burned him.
Turned him back to reality.
Yeah, exactly. Which we all need from time to time.
And, no, dude. Yeah. And like, whoops, gosh dang it.
Yep.
The greatest introduction of a little character of all time.
Holy smokes.
No time for love, Dr. Jones.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones. Hold on to your potatoes. Here's the thing. So there's all the evidence, like when Indy goes down into the crypt to get the Lost Ark. There are hieroglyphics of C-3PO and R2-D2 being chased by the mummy, a la Abbott and Costello. And then in Temple of Doom, it's called Obi-Wan's. Right. So like all this stuff that people are saying, he's in the carbonite freeze and he's having this great 1930s like adventure film in his mind during it.
Was like his great. I honestly, in my head when I was a kid growing up, was like, well, he was
younger,
the great grandson of Han Solo.
So I believe there's a comic book I heard about that I don't think they meet. Han Solo is from and Chewbacca are from a galaxy far, far away, right? They go through a wormhole. They end up at Earth in the 1930s. Crash land. Han Solo dies. Chewie is stuck in the middle of a forest somewhere. Indiana Jones goes in search because he hears that Bigfoot is in and he comes across a skeleton with the vest and a blaster and he goes, I wonder who this was, and keeps walking on, and basically he meets up with Chewie. And I thought, what an interesting idea. So I don't know if we came to anything here of
well, I would say that your favorite movie has nothing to do with the perfect movie or the best movie.
Correct. Because I like comedies more than anything,
same.
And I think we both do. Again, we didn't even get into our whole Mel Brooks thing. You could say Blazing Saddles is the greatest movie of all time.
But that's why I know To Kill a Mockingbird, Casablanca, and Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, yeah.
It's a stoner mentality. Those movies have held up for 70, 80 years.
Right.
So to me, the brilliance of the filmmakers and everybody who helped make those movies were able to understand human nature. To me, that is what filmmaking is all about.
Right.
Doesn't matter really what the subject matter is. It's, do the filmmakers understand people, and can they not adequately, that's stupid, but are they describing what we recognize and what we feel, and do they, like what I love about Citizen Kane, what I loved about Who's Afraid of
Virginia Woolf?
That movie's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The other one, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Right.
Like the acting involved.
What about Bob?
Filmmaking.
All these movies where there are questions in the title.
They're questioning the characters.
Yeah, they question the title, they question the characters. Everything's a question. That's the best movie of all time.
It should have been A New Hope.
Right, A New Hope. Star Wars A New Hope?
Empire Strikes Back.
Return of the Jedi?
The Phantom Menace.
I think most people were. The Phantom Menace.
Attack of the Clones.
Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. I saw recently that apparently Liam Neeson agreed to do Phantom Menace without reading one word of the script. I wonder how he feels about that.
Probably wealthier.
Yeah, probably very wealthy.
I think that's a good career move.
It's fine.
He doesn't do Taken if he's not Qui-Gon.
True, probably.
He's not Ra's al Ghul if he's not Qui-Gon.
True. I guess not. He's just Oscar Schindler with his Oscar.
Yeah.
Oh, well. One day.
I make lists. Have you ever seen that?
Yes,
that's one of the greatest scenes in anything.
I'm always making lists.
That's why Steven Spielberg hired me.
Because I'm always making lists.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
What's funny?
What's funny about it? I want to do some improvisational comedy.
Dude, that is the most brilliant... brilliantly written sketch
What's
I've ever
that
heard.
from?
Life's
Too Short. If you get a chance, look at Liam Neeson on Life's Too Short.
With Ricky Gervais. Literally one of the greatest comedy routines ever put on anything.
So I think we came down to that you have three best movies that you could argue, which were Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird. And I will honestly, even though it's my favorite, I'll throw Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Right.
Because that movie is perfect. And one of the most perfect comedy movies of all time is also Raising Arizona.
Right.
And I will also on.
You give me a lot of honorable mentions. Honorable mentions.
Also, I'm throwing Matrix on there because the Matrix revolutionized filmmaking. The
Matrix Revolutions.
Not like
gotcha.
Business. Not they.
Yeah, the Matrix Revolutions was a great movie.
You know what? I'm going Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown.
Yeah, I forget.
Pulp Fiction's perfect.
Pulp Fiction is a pretty perfect movie.
Perfect.
For me,
Jackie Brown is perfect.
For me, I'm going to still go that Star Wars A New Hope, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Jaws are perfect movies that you can watch anytime. They're not as old, and I consider myself an old film movie buff. Like, I love To Catch a Thief. I love Rear Window. I love Singing in the Rain. Wizard of Oz. Like, these are honorable mentions, some of the best movies ever. Yeah, I will watch them whenever.
Quick Change. I will also say Quick Change.
Which is Quick Change?
Quick Change is the only movie directed by Bill Murray. Oh. With Bill Murray, Gina Davis, Randy Quaid. They rob a bank. It's all about trying to get out of New York in one day. Jeez. And all it's really a really wonderful examination. I'm such a nerd. Such an incredible examination of old school New York coming in with new school New York with all the building and the tearing down of the old institutions and the bringing up of the new institutions. Oh my God,
you're talking New York. We didn't even talk Scorsese's films. Like,
yeah, Goodfellas.
I was like, Goodfellas was on the other day, and I'm like, that's a brilliant film. I actually
at any point in time.
Anytime.
You're there for the rest of the movie.
Here's the thing, and it's hard for me because I love both these movies. I kind of like Casino better than Goodfellas. Which is not a popular opinion.
I love Casino, but no way
in hell.
It's just nowhere near the scope.
You know what I find interesting about the film? I know we're trying to wrap up, but it's such a good point.
We got like 4 more minutes.
Okay, we got 4 more minutes.
Perfection of podcasting.
You have one. He obviously loves narration in his movies. You have one narrator throughout all of Goodfellas, which is
Ray Liotta.
Yeah, Ray Liotta's character. In Casino, you have several. You're following 3 characters, and they all get their chance to sort of talk about their side of it. And I don't know. There was just something about that I thought was interesting.
It really is an incredible movie.
Plus you got Don Rickles. So,
the way he plays with lighting, the way he plays with music, and I think it was too close in time to Goodfellas.
Maybe.
Well,
I remember, if you remember when David Spade was on SNL, he had Hollywood Minute or whatever. He said, "Oh yeah, Casino. I liked it when it was called Goodfellas." Right. It's all.
Raging Bull.
God, that's a brilliant movie. So it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard because there are too many brilliant movies that you could go, that's a perfect movie. Goodfellas might be a perfect movie.
Is
a perfect movie.
Again, it's like it's not that there's the perfect movie. But like what the thing I know for me about Casablanca, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Citizen Kane aren't movies that I would care to see. They aren't genres. I'm not into drama. I'm not into like I like comedies. I like action movies.
But they still appeal to you.
And they hit you like you. That's the thing too to me with filmmaking before 1980. Or like the mid 80s, where it just became more of a product and less of a art form,
right?
Because the late 60s and 70s were all about pushing the boundaries of storytelling and creation and the explosion of movies. I mean, like the Pacino movies in the 70s are unbelievable.
Yeah, we haven't talked.
The Francis Ford Coppola movies of the 80s are unbelievable. And that. I mean, those guys George Lucas, they were all
friends.
Right.
So you got George Lucas, who's friends with Francis Ford Coppola, who they all become
friends
with. Worked for him. Right. Become friends with Spielberg, who are friends with Martin Scorsese. Like, when it came to the Oscars at The Departed, the 3 of them to come out and give their friend an Oscar, like, that's pretty awesome.
It's
obviously, and I like The Departed. I think it's a great movie. It's not Goodfellas, and it's not Casino.
Yeah, it's fun. It's exciting, but it doesn't have the level of depth and the knowledge of character.
Right. I mean, I almost
DiCaprio is not capable of being Ray Liotta.
No, but I almost like Wolf of Wall Street more than The Departed.
I just feel like Wolf of Wall Street is a documentary about DiCaprio.
About DiCaprio? Yeah. You think that's how he lives his life all the time?
Yeah, and that's why I thought Far and Away was actually a documentary about rich people.
Well, I don't think we've come to anything by the end of this.
That was an interesting use of words after we talked about Far and Away.
Yes.
Oh, not Far and Away. Oh, man.
Which one are you talking about?
What was the other Nicole Kidman? Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, Eyes Wide Shut. That's why I was like, I'm not really quite sure.
Interesting, the Irish migrating to the country.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like...
Staking their land.
I was like, interesting. All right.
No. I almost did it again.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut. Kubrick. I mean,
God, we didn't even talk about
Shining. The Shining's.
It's 2001: Space Odyssey.
I mean, movies that changed people, dude.
Here's an interesting thing. Nowadays, you have to, like, things are cut. Like, and I'll go back to Edgar Wright, who will do cut in a scene to keep the action going, and then do a long tracking shot, and you're going, where is this going? Where is this going? Where back in the day, when you're getting to the Casablancas of the world or the To Kill a Mockingbird, have you ever seen Touch of Evil? Which is like that whole opening shot is one shot, and like. That is patience. So I guess something that would be the best movie ever, can you hold an audience attention from today, which is ADD riddled with, like, I've got my phone out, keep me entertained, keep Thor bashing Loki, because if I don't see action every 20 minutes or every 20 pages, I'm going to get disinterested. There's some, like I was talking, To Catch a Thief. There's a lot of Cary Grant just sitting on a roof. And it's compelling, and I'm happy to sit and watch him. And it's slow.
Well, I guess the question
is, it's a slow burn, but it's good.
I think the question becomes, like, you were fostered into movies that at a young age from your dad, from a loving.
Well, and my mom, like To Catch a Thief is one of her favorite films, and she goes, "You've got to watch this."
Right, and you could share it with them, and so you were brought into an appreciation of really good filmmaking.
But I've had the same experience where my dad would go, "We've got to watch West Side Story. It's one of the greatest musicals ever."
So your dad wasn't perfect.
And we were sitting there, and I'm going, "So this is one of the..." And he's like, "It is a little dated." So even for him, who hadn't seen, but he had, and maybe he saw it when he was growing up with his dad. I don't know. Maybe they saw it in the movie theater, and he went...
That's an interesting movie to pass from son to father.
What, to West Side Story?
Yeah.
It's the
Son,
American...
you gotta see it. It's the Jets. He thought it was football.
He did think it was... No. My dad loves musicals. My whole family loves musicals. It's a great thing.
Yeah, because like Singing in the Rain
doesn't do it for you.
No, See, and I love Debbie Reynolds,
and you love old Hollywood too.
Yeah, I'm not like it.
Well, I think Gene Kelly's the greatest song and dance man ever.
Yeah,
and I love Fred Astaire. Really,
yeah, none.
See, but I studied like you went to film school. I went to theater, and I tap danced, and I did all this sort of stuff. So I love all that stuff.
Right.
But I saw all that stuff first before I got into it, so I don't know what fed what. You know what I mean?
Well, I think like you end up trying to not recreate, but
emulate.
I think like when you watch like a musical growing up and you're interested in it, what's amazing are the moves. So I think like you're watching, you're almost like.
But I love the music in it as well.
But I mean, like Gene Kelly it's not just the music. Gene Kelly can dance for miles, and to see somebody do that, you start like literally playing the press record in your brain of the moves and everything. So you're
and I've watched just YouTube videos of him just doing his routines,
right?
Because it's some of the most unbelievable. If you get a chance, there's a movie called Always Fair Weather, and he tap dances on roller skates, like metal roller skates, and it's one of the most amazing. It's maybe better than the.
I saw Chaplin do that.
You did not see Chaplin do nothing.
Yes, I did.
Did he do that?
Yes.
Prove it. We're going to YouTube, folks.
All
Hang
right.
with us. But anyway, we didn't come to anything at the end of this, but I think we have our choices. If you want to let us know, we're at preppyandstonerpod@gmail.com, I believe.
That is it.
What are we on Twitter? We are at preppystonerpod.
I believe.
And I think we'll probably start a Facebook stuff. You can go to our YouTube channel, which is also Preppy and Stoner Pod.
That's where you can find all of them and just press play, let it play around the house, and have a good time and enjoy. And argue with the computer, not with us.
Yeah, but we're working on getting it up on iTunes and all that sort of stuff. So when we have it, we will blast it on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and any email addresses we have. So thank you guys. We really appreciate it. And as always, I am the Preppy.
And I am the Stoner.
Stay preppy and stay stony. All right. We'll see you later.
Later, guys.